Welcome to Coffee Break. Thoughtful conversations for a busy world. Let's begin.
You know, I was thinking the other day about when you buy a new houseplant.
Oh, yeah.
Like, say you get a really vibrant, beautiful ficus or something from the garden center.
Right.
You usually put it in this perfectly sized, just gorgeous ceramic pot.
The decorative ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you pack the soil in tightly around the base. It looks complete. It looks entirely stable.
Very aesthetically pleasing.
Right. You water it. You give it the exact right amount of indirect sunlight. You do absolutely everything you are supposed to do to nurture this living thing.
Which is the whole goal.
Right. And because you provide the perfect environment, the plant does what its biological programming dictates it must do. It grows.
It has to. I mean, the roots don't actually know they are in a pot.
Yeah.
Their biological imperative is simply to seek out more nutrients, to push outward, to, anchor a heavier canopy. That is the entire function of a root system.
And here is the brutal mechanical reality that nobody really warns you about when you're standing at the register in the gardening center.
Oh, I know where this is going.
If that plant genuinely thrives, those roots are going to expand until they hit a barrier.
Yep.
They're going to reach out in the dark, and eventually they're going to press up against the hard, unyielding, kiln-fired sides of that beautiful ceramic pot.
And the force generated by expanding cellular growth is staggering.
It really is.
I mean, it can heave concrete sidewalks. A thin layer of decorative ceramic stands absolutely no chance against it.
None at all. The roots will literally fracture the ceramic.
Yeah.
You wake up one morning, and there's a hairline crack down the side, and then the whole thing just gives way.
It just shatters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The container that once held it perfectly, the container that actually nurtured it and provided the safe environment for it to establish itself in the first place.
The thing that kept it alive.
Right. It is now completely destroyed by the very growth you were trying to achieve.
Wow. Yeah.
The growth is undeniable. It is beautiful. It means you did everything right. But it also fundamentally destroys the vessel that used to hold it.
It forces us to confront a pretty terrifying aspect of progress, I think.
How so?
Well, we prefer our narratives of personal development to be purely additive.
Oh, totally. We just want to add good things.
Right. We want to believe that we simply acquire more emotional intelligence, more boundaries, more self-awareness, and that our external lives remain completely undisturbed by these internal shifts.
You want the unbroken pot.
Exactly. We want the unbroken pot. But the reality of profound personal development is inevitably a story of structural destruction. We outgrow our containers.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. I am so incredibly glad you, the listener, are here with us today.
It's a really important one today.
It is. Usually, you know how we do things here? We take massive stacks of data, dense historical timelines, complex scientific journals, and we distill them down.
The usual heavy lifting.
Right. But today, our mission is radically different. It is highly personal, and I'll just say it right up front. It is emotionally heavy.
Very much so.
Our source material today isn't a mountain of statistics. It is purely conceptual.
And brief.
Super brief. We are unpacking a short, but honestly completely devastating excerpt from The Bittersweet Evolution of Love and Growth.
Yeah.
Specifically, a section that focuses intensely on the hidden, silent grief of outgrowing the people you still love.
The brevity of this text is actually what makes it so dense, I think.
How do you mean?
It strips away all the situational anecdotes. It forces us to just sit with the psychological fiction of an experience that almost every single human being goes through.
But we never talk about it.
No, we entirely lack the vocabulary to discuss it.
Yeah.
We are looking at the emotional toll extracted by the act of self-actualization.
Okay, let's unpack this. We were going to spend our time today looking at the tension between every single word in this concept.
Because every word is heavily loaded.
Right. Every word in this source text is pulling the human heart in a different direction.
The overarching paradox we have to wrestle with first is the profound disconnect between how society markets growth to us and how growth actually manifests in the nervous system.
Society's marketing campaign for growth is basically relentlessly positive.
Right. Society markets personal growth as a universally triumphant, consequence-free ascension.
Like climbing a ladder.
Exactly. Self-actualize, evolve, find your highest self. It is sold to us as a purely joyful liberation.
It's all triumphant background music, sunrise yoga retreats, and standing on the peak of a mountain with your hands in the air.
But what this text forces us to look at is the shadow cast by that mountain.
The dark side of it.
The deeply isolating sorrow that arrives the moment you realize your newly acquired altitude makes it impossible to breathe the air in the valley you just left.
Oh, that's heavy.
We celebrate the new leaves on the tree, but we do not hold space for the cracking of the ceramic pot.
Okay, I want to look at the very first phrase that frames this entire concept in the source text. It says, the bittersweet evolution.
Yeah, that phrasing is very specific.
Before we can even touch the pain of outgrowing someone, we need to look at the terminology used for growth itself. The source doesn't call it improvement.
No.
It doesn't call it success or maturation. It specifically calls it an evolution.
And using the word evolution shifts the entire paradigm.
Because improvement implies what? Choice.
Right. Improvement is voluntary. Success is a social construct. Evolution is a biological imperative dictated by a changing environment.
It's survival.
Exactly. It implies that to stay in your previous form was to risk extinction.
Wow. Okay, so evolution implies survival. You adapt because the conditions of your reality demand it.
You have no other choice.
Right. So if you are evolving emotionally, you are succeeding at the game of psychic survival.
You are developing the emotional lungs to breathe on land because the water became too toxic.
I love that analogy. But then the author attaches bittersweet to the front of it. Bittersweet evolution.
Which changes everything.
It completely contaminates the victory. I was trying to visualize what a bittersweet evolution actually feels like in practice, and it feels like this to me.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine you realize the foundation of your house is rotting.
A nightmare scenario, but sure.
Right. You have to upgrade it. You need to pour a new, incredibly strong, earthquake-proof foundation so the structure can last a century.
Which is undeniably a good thing.
Yes, but to gain access to the ground, you have to completely bulldoze the walls of your childhood bedroom.
Oh, wow.
The room where you felt safe, the room that holds all your formative memories, you have to destroy it to save the house.
The physical sensation of that scenario perfectly mirrors this psychological reality.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You are standing in the freezing wind. The progress is completely undeniable. I mean, you will no longer collapse in an earthquake. You possess structural integrity now.
But the loss of that familiar, comforting enclosure is equally undeniable.
Right. You aren't irrational for demanding the stronger foundation. But you also aren't crazy for standing in the dust and the rubble of your old bedroom and weeping over the loss of the wallpaper.
It's so conflicting. And society leaves us entirely unprepared for the rubble.
We have no manual for the rubble.
We are conditioned to view personal growth as a continuous, linear accumulation of positive traits.
Right, like building blocks?
But biological evolution, the core metaphor here, is a ruthless editor.
Very ruthless. It is not just about acquiring advantageous mutations. It is fundamentally about the shedding of obsolete forms.
You have to leave things behind.
You cannot carry the gills with you onto the land. They are dead weight. They dry out. They must go.
And translating that from biology to human psychology, to evolve in love and in life inherently means leaving earlier developmental stages behind.
You have to.
You shed former ways of interpreting the world, former defense mechanisms that used to keep you safe, former tolerances for chaotic behavior.
Because human relationships function as closed ecosystems.
Okay, expand on that. What do you mean by closed ecosystems?
Well, if you change your fundamental emotional biology, if you require a different pH level of communication, if your boundaries require more sunlight, if your values shift, you may literally no longer be able to survive in the atmospheric conditions of a specific relationship.
Oh, man.
And critically, that relationship can no longer survive you.
The bittersweet nature is the jarring realization that shedding an old skin is a victory of survival, but it leaves your new, tender skin totally exposed to the cold air for a while.
It's intensely vulnerable.
And you have to look down at the discarded skin, which used to protect you, which literally used to be you, and leave it on the dirt.
And it's so confusing for the nervous system.
That's so confusing.
Because our basic survival programming teaches us that pain equals damage.
Like a physical injury.
Right. If I touch a hot stove, the pain is a warning system screaming at me to pull away because I am being harmed.
So when you are engaging in profound personal growth, say you are finally setting boundaries with a parent, or you are getting sober, or you are simply refusing to participate in toxic gossip with your oldest friend group.
All positive things.
Right. And suddenly you feel this immense aching sadness. Your brain misinterprets the signal.
Exactly. The brain assesses the emotional pain, references its database, and concludes, well, this hurts terribly. Therefore, this action must be causing me harm. I must be making a massive mistake.
So you start gaslighting your own progress.
All the time.
You think, if I'm getting healthier, why do I feel so isolated? Why does my chest physically ache when I look at my phone?
And the text provides the diagnostic answer for that.
Because the pain is not a symptom of failure.
No.
The pain is the byproduct of the evolution itself. The pain is the literal friction of the old skin tearing away from the new tissue.
It's the sensation of the pot breaking.
Exactly. So if this old version of ourselves is shedding, what happens to the relationship that was built entirely upon that old version?
That is the core conflict.
That brings us to a phrase in the text that I really wrestled with. It describes this process as a funeral for a version of a relationship that no longer fits.
The funeral, yeah.
I have to be honest, I struggle with the word funeral here. I want to push back on it.
Okay, let's push back.
A funeral implies a corpse. It implies absolute, permanent physical absence. Applying that word to a relationship where the other person is still very much alive feels, I don't know, overly dramatic to me.
Sure.
It almost feels a little narcissistic. This person is still alive. They're probably still texting you memes on Instagram. They might literally be passing you the mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving.
Right, they're sitting right next to you.
Exactly. Why are we applying the heaviest mortal terminology we have to a dynamic that is simply shifting?
The resistance to that word is completely natural.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because our culture views a relationship as simply an invisible line connecting two autonomous individuals.
Person A and person B.
Right, person A and person B. If A and B are both breathing, the assumption is that the relationship is alive.
That makes sense.
But if we dive into the psychology of deep human connection, a relationship is not an invisible line. It is a discrete third entity.
Entity C.
Exactly. Entity C, the US.
The yes.
When two people interact over a long period, they construct a third living organism.
Wow, okay.
This organism has its own nervous system built entirely out of shared history. It has its own exclusive language of inside jokes, its own respiratory rate of give and take, its own established laws of physics regarding what is acceptable and what is forbidden.
Okay, I see where you're going. The US is a living organism that relies on person A and person B staying exactly the same in order to feed it.
It requires a highly specific diet.
Right.
And what the source material is pointing out is that while person A and person B are still physically in the same room eating Thanksgiving dinner, the U.S., that highly specific historical version of the dynamic, can absolutely undergo organ failure.
Oh, that is a dark image.
It is. When one person outgrows the dynamic, when they evolve past the rules that govern that specific us, they stop feeding the organism.
So it starves.
It starves. It dies. The corpse of the old dynamic is literally decaying in the space between you, even as you pass the mashed potatoes.
Oh, wow. So you are sitting across from a living person, but you are interacting over a corpse.
And this is why the word funeral isn't melodrama.
It's literal.
It is a psychological necessity. When a profound living entity dies, the human brain requires mourning to process the finality.
Right.
The profound danger here, and why this specific text is so vital for you to understand, is that because there is no physical body in a casket, this becomes a textbook case of disenfranchised grief.
Disenfranchised grief. I want to make sure we dissect that term for you listening because it explains so much of the silent suffering we endure.
It's a crucial concept.
Break it down for us. What exactly is disenfranchised grief?
Disenfranchised grief is a clinical term for grief that is not openly acknowledged, socially validated, or publicly mourned because it doesn't fit the societal script for what constitutes a real loss.
Because we rely heavily on physical rituals to tell our nervous system that a transition has occurred.
Exactly. Rituals are how we communicate with our subconscious.
Like an actual funeral.
Right. When a human being physically dies, we have an intricate script. We wear black. We gather in a designated building, we read eulogies, the community brings casseroles to the grieving family.
The casserole is the physical proof that the community sees your pain.
Yes. The collective society looks at you and says, a profound severing has occurred and your physiological dysregulation is valid.
We even have recognized secular rituals for romantic divorces.
We do.
Friends come over, you pack up boxes, you throw a party. Society understands the death of an us has occurred.
But what ritual exists for outgrowing a childhood best friend?
Nothing. There is no Hallmark card for my emotional evolution has rendered our 20-year dynamic fundamentally incompatible?
There really isn't.
You don't get time off work because you realize you can no longer be your authentic self around your sibling?
No one brings you a casserole.
No.
There is no public gathering to acknowledge the severing. We completely lack the cultural architecture to mourn a dynamic that no longer fits.
So you are carrying around the heavy, rotting weight of this dead thus, and the rest of the world is acting like you are completely fine because you and this person are still standing next to each other, smiling in a group photo.
It is maddeningly isolating.
It's like carrying a ghost that no one else can see.
That's exactly it.
And because nobody else sees the ghost, and because you haven't been allowed to hold a funeral, your nervous system gets stuck in a loop. You start gaslighting yourself again.
You start rationalizing the pain away.
Right. You think, well, we still grab a coffee once a month, so I shouldn't be crying in my car afterward.
But you are crying in your car.
Yes. You are crying in your car because the specific version of the relationship where you felt totally seen, where you stayed up until 3 a.m. telling each other your deepest fears without judgment, that version is in the ground.
To process that, you have to bypass the need for societal validation.
How do you do that?
You have to actively hold a private funeral in your own mind. You must look at the living person and say to yourself, the way we used to be is dead, and no amount of nostalgia will resuscitate it.
That requires a terrifying level of psychological bravery to accept.
It is terrifying.
But, holding a funeral is somewhat straightforward when the person actually wronged you.
True.
It's painful, but the math adds up. The brutal friction in this source material, the thing that makes this deep dive so agonizing, is that you're holding a funeral for a dynamic with someone you still deeply love.
Yeah.
How does a human brain process that contradiction?
The emphasis on the phrase still love is the absolute linchpin of this entire philosophy.
It changes everything.
It changes the molecular structure of the grief.
Because if someone betrays you, if they steal from you, if they become undeniably toxic, the narrative is relatively clean.
You have a clear reason to leave.
Right. The anger you feel acts as a protective shield. Anger is an active separating emotion. It builds a wall.
It pushes them away.
But the process of outgrowing someone rarely looks like a cinematic, fiery falling out.
No, almost never.
It's almost never a screaming match in the pouring rain where someone throws a vase against the wall.
No, it is infinitely quieter than that. And that silence is what makes it so insidious.
It's a slow, imperceptible stretching apart. It's not an explosion, it's entropy.
Entropy is a great word for it.
And the most confusing, agonizing part of this slow drift is that you look across the growing distance and you realize your affection for them hasn't diminished.
Not at all.
You still want them to be wildly happy. You still remember exactly how much you love them. You haven't lost them to anger or betrayal. You've just, you've lost them to time and growth.
This creates what is arguably the most physically taxing state the human mind can endure.
Which is?
Severe cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance.
How do we reconcile deep, enduring, genuine love with fundamental structural incompatibility?
You can physically feel cognitive dissonance in your body.
You really can.
It's that tightness in your chest when their name pops up on your phone. You love them, but your stomach drops because you know interacting with them is going to require you to shrink yourself.
Cognitive dissonance is the mental and physiological distress experienced when a person holds two or more contradictory beliefs or realities simultaneously.
Right.
The brain functions like an engine. Cognitive dissonance is pouring sand into the gears.
It just grinds everything to a halt.
In this scenario, reality A is, I love this person, they have a good heart, and our shared history is sacred to me.
That's reality A.
Reality B is, being in their presence exhausts my nervous system, our core values are diverging, and I cannot express my newly evolved self around them without facing judgment or misunderstanding.
The brain cannot tolerate that paradox. It demands a resolution.
It desperately wants a clean answer.
It wants it to be a binary choice. If I love you, being around you should feel good.
Or the opposite.
Right. Or, if being around you feels bad, it must mean I don't love you anymore. Or, you have secretly become an evil person.
We desperately want to villainize the other person.
Why do we do that? Why do we jump to making them the villain?
Villainizing is an incredibly common energy-saving defense mechanism for the brain. It instantly resolves the dissonance.
Oh, because it makes the math simple again.
Exactly. If I can convince my brain that you are a villain, then my departure is an act of righteous self-defense, and my grief is immediately mitigated by my anger.
That makes so much sense.
But what makes outgrowing someone so incredibly agonizing is that the reality of the situation refuses to give you that easy way out.
They aren't a villain. They are just a person.
Right. The source material forces us to sit in the fire of the paradox. Love does not equate to alignment.
I want to highlight that distinction because I think it's where most of us get completely trapped. We treat love and alignment as synonyms.
We use them interchangeably.
Let's look at it like physics. Love is the raw energy, the emotional resonance.
Okay.
Alignment is the directional momentum. Let's say you and your friend are two sound waves.
I like this.
For years, you were perfectly in phase. The peaks and troughs matched. You amplified each other.
The harmony was good.
But as you evolve, the frequency of your wave changes. You start vibrating at a different pitch because you've done the work, you've healed, you've shifted.
And because their frequency remains the same, the two waves are now out of phase.
Exactly. When two out-of-phase waves intersect, it creates destructive interference.
They cancel each other out.
They cancel each other out. The energy is still there, the love is still there, but when you bring them together in the same room, the resulting sound is flat, muffled, or deeply discordant.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. We have romanticized love to a dangerous degree in our culture.
We really have.
We believe the fairy tale that if love is strong enough, it possesses the magical ability to conquer all practical differences.
Love conquers all.
Right. But love is an emotional state. Alignment is a practical, day-to-day behavioral reality.
The logistics of being together.
You can possess a vast reservoir of love for someone, but if your trajectory is aiming toward rigorous self-honesty, vulnerability, and breaking generational trauma,
And their trajectory is comfortably rooted in avoidance, stagnation, or familiar dysfunction.
exactly, the love will not alter the physics of your destructive interference.
You can love them with your whole heart, but you have to do it from a completely different room so you stop canceling each other out.
Outgrowing someone does not retroactively invalidate the love that was present, nor does it mean the love you feel today is fake.
It was real then, and it's real now.
The love you felt for them 5 years ago was profoundly real. The love you feel for them today is real. It simply no longer functions as a viable operating system for a daily interactive relationship.
So what are we grieving then?
The grief here is not grieving a loss of love, it is grieving the loss of potential.
Oh, wow.
It is grieving the devastating realization that love alone is fundamentally insufficient to keep the U.S. alive.
The consequence of this destructive interference, the natural byproduct of trying to walk forward while someone you love stays behind, is guilt.
That is the ultimate hurdle. Guilt.
Let me talk directly to you listening. You know this exact feeling. It's this sickening heavy weight in your gut.
It's visceral.
It's not the cliche of climbing a mountain while they stay at base camp. It feels much more violent than that. It feels like a physical tether.
A tether, okay.
Imagine an incredibly thick elastic band connecting your waist to theirs. You start walking forward on your path of personal evolution. They choose to stand completely still.
So you take a step.
For the first few steps, the band just goes taut. You feel a little resistance.
But as you continue to walk, the physics of tension begin to apply.
The further you walk into your new life, the tighter that elastic band gets. It starts digging into your skin. It restricts your breathing.
You have to pull harder just to move an inch.
You are expending massive amounts of energy just to take a single step forward because you are dragging the dead weight of their stasis.
And they are feeling it too.
Right. You look back and you see them stumbling, getting pulled off balance by your forward momentum. And suddenly your progress feels like you are inflicting violence on them.
That tension, that burning sensation around your waist is the physical manifestation of guilt.
It's awful.
Guilt is the brain's panic response to the tension. It is the alarm bell screaming, stop walking immediately before this band snaps and someone gets hurt.
Why is that alarm bell so loud? Why do we feel like we are committing a moral crime by simply getting healthier, setting boundaries, and moving forward?
We feel that way because our brains are running ancient tribal survival programming that conflates physical proximity with loyalty.
Wait, say that again. Proximity with loyalty.
In early human history, if you walked away from the tribe, you died and the tribe was weakened.
Right.
Loyalty meant standing by someone's side physically and emotionally no matter what.
We still say things like that today.
Our modern translation of this is ride or die, through thick and thin.
I never thought about it like that.
But we rarely pause to interrogate what happens when thin means a mutual, unspoken agreement to remain emotionally stunted forever.
Wow.
What happens when ride or die means riding the same toxic merry-go-round until you are both nauseous.
Loyalty gets completely weaponized against growth. We use the shared history as a cage.
Very often, yes. The guilt of moving forward stems from the deeply ingrained false belief that your individual growth is an act of hostile abandonment.
Hostile abandonment.
When you outgrow a relationship, the other person, the one standing still on the other end of the elastic band, feels the sudden jolt of the tension.
Because they haven't moved.
Right, because they haven't changed. They perceive your new boundaries not as self-protection, but as a direct attack on them.
And because you still love them, sensing their pain triggers immense guilt in you.
You start to internalize their accusation. You question the validity of your own evolution.
You think, maybe I should walk backward to slacken the band. Maybe my standards are arrogant. Maybe I am being selfish for wanting peace.
You ask yourself, who am I to think I deserve to live without this constant anxiety?
Yes. I should just shrink myself back down. I should purposely lower my frequency so we can be in phase again.
And that is the insidious danger of this specific guilt. It heavily tempts you to reverse your own evolution to soothe someone else's discomfort.
It asks you to betray yourself to keep them company.
Exactly. But we have to break down the mechanics of why setting a boundary feels so violent to them.
Okay, let's break it down.
If you have spent a decade in a dynamic where boundaries were actively discouraged, where enmeshment was confused with closeness,
Which is so common.
suddenly asserting a boundary, even a gentle one, sends a shockwave down the tether.
Saying something as simple as, I can't participate in conversations where we just complain about our spouses anymore, feels to the other person like you are rejecting their entire existence.
It feels like a rejection because you are unilaterally destroying the established laws of physics that governed the old us.
You're changing the rules of the game.
You are changing the rules of the game without their permission. But here is the critical, necessary reframe for anyone wrestling with the burning tension of this guilt.
I think people really need to hear this part.
Moving forward is not an indictment of the person left behind. It is an honoring of your own new reality.
Moving forward is not an indictment of the person left behind. That is massive. It shifts the focus from punishing them to protecting yourself.
It is vital to internalize that distinction. By walking backward to slacken the tether, you are not saving them.
No.
You are only suffocating yourself. If you shrink yourself to fit back into the old dynamic, resentment will inevitably metastasize.
It always does.
You will sit across from them at dinner, playing the role of the old you, and you will eventually begin to subconsciously punish them for your own self-betrayal.
You will become passive-aggressive.
The dynamic will turn poisonous. The truest, most profound act of love sometimes is to let the relationship expire before you allow resentment to turn it into a weapon.
If you step backward to relieve the guilt, you are faking your presence.
That's a good way to put it.
And faking your presence in a relationship is actually the ultimate disrespect to the other person. You're essentially lying to them every time you speak, pretending to be a ghost of yourself just to keep their illusion intact.
Which isn't fair to either of you.
You are robbing them of the opportunity to interact with reality.
Precisely. And that is why the guilt, while completely understandable from an evolutionary perspective, is ultimately a misfiring of your moral compass.
That false alarm.
Your evolution is your sole responsibility. Their evolution, or their absolute refusal to evolve, is their responsibility.
You can't do the work for them.
You cannot drag someone into a new frequency against their will, and you should never apologize for possessing the strength to change your own.
That's so empowering.
The guilt of moving forward is simply the final, desperate echo of the old relationship dynamic trying to pull you back into its gravity well.
It's the gravitational pull of your own history. It's incredibly strong. It makes your bones ache. But if you keep accelerating, if you refuse to turn back, you eventually reach escape velocity.
Escape velocity. The moment the tension breaks.
The band snaps.
And reaching escape velocity doesn't mean you look down and hate the planet you just left behind.
Not at all.
You can still look at it and see how beautiful it was. It just means you are now in an entirely different orbit, subject to a new set of physical laws.
So as we bring the massive scope of this deep dive into focus, let's trace the arc of the journey we've taken today, built entirely from just a few dense sentences.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We began by acknowledging the brutal mechanics of the roots and the ceramic pot.
The necessary destruction.
Right. We recognized that a bittersweet evolution is not a glitch in your psychological software. It is a fundamental law of nature. True structural growth mandates the destruction of old confining enclosures.
We examined the necessity of the funeral.
That was a hard one to swallow.
We pushed past the initial resistance to that morbid terminology to understand that the U.S. is a living, breathing third entity that can and does die of starvation when the environment changes.
The entity C.
We identified the agonizing reality of disenfranchised grief, the silent haunting that occurs when society refuses to validate your mourning.
And we dug deep into the physiological toll of cognitive dissonance. The torturous realization that love and alignment are two completely different vectors.
The sound waves.
You could harbor a profound, enduring love for someone while recognizing that your sound waves now create destructive interference.
Finally, we confronted the elastic tether of guilt.
The survivor's guilt of growth.
We established that the tension you feel is not a signal that you are committing a crime, but simply the friction of breaking free from familiar gravity.
It's just friction.
Honoring your evolution by maintaining forward momentum is not an act of malicious abandonment. It is the absolute prerequisite for an authentic existence.
To you, listening to this right now, if you are currently walking around with the ghost of a dead dynamic, if you are feeling that heavy, burning tension digging into your waist as you try to outgrow a friendship you've had since childhood, or a partnership that used to feel like a safe harbor, or even a familial dynamic that demands you stay small.
This is for you.
This source material is the ultimate proof that your pain is valid. You are not losing your mind. You are not cold-hearted or arrogant. You are not alone in this profoundly silent grief.
No, you're not.
You are simply evolving. And evolution is, by its very nature, a bittersweet shedding of the skin.
It is the unavoidable, agonizing toll we must pay for the supreme privilege of becoming our truest, most integrated selves.
It really is. Before we go, we always want to leave you with something to turn over in your own mind, something to wrestle with in the quiet moments of your day.
Something to take with you.
We've talked so much about the mechanics of outgrowing, the physiological toll of cognitive dissonance, the necessity of the funeral. But I want to turn to our expert to pose one final, lingering question for you to ponder.
If outgrowing the people we love is an inevitable, unstoppable mechanism of human evolution, does true, lifelong love require us to constantly, exhaustingly hold metaphorical funerals and endlessly renegotiate the fundamental physics of our relationships with the same person over and over again?
Of course.
Or is the ultimate, highest act of love simply allowing them to gracefully become a memory preserved perfectly in the past without violently forcing them into a future where they no longer fit?
Think about the roots. Think about the pot. And whatever you do, don't be afraid to keep growing.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Coffee Break. If this conversation stayed with you, you can find more episodes here on the channel. Until next time, take care.